Believe it or don't, Cheap Trick has been making rock and roll music together for 52 years. Are they all washed up, as the title of their brand new studio album suggests? We should discuss. Hey there, SwanShadow here. Welcome back to the nest. And yes, you heard me correctly. Cheap Trick has just released a new album of all original material 52 years into their Hall of Fame career. I mean, the only thing I've managed to do for that long is keep breathing. But here it is. All Washed Up is the title, and it's the Mighty Trick's 21st studio recording. This album arrives 4 years after the band's previous effort, In Another World, released in 2021. Now, I have to confess, Cheap Trick is a top 10 all-time band for me. I fell in love with their music from the first time I heard their second album, In Color, right after it was released in 1977. I then jumped back and picked up their debut album, which came out earlier that same year, and I've been on the Cheap Trick train ever since. They are currently tied with Kansas as the band I've seen perform live the most frequently. In fact, I've seen them twice just since the previous album was released. So you could say we've got history. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure we'd get another studio record from these guys. But I was hoping, given that In Another World was rock solid, and Trick still plays live with all the fire that anyone has a right to expect from a band that's put in more than half a century on the road. So when this new album turned up, I was, hopeful. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this here thing, but first, let's talk about the people who made it. One of the truly amazing facts about Cheap Trick is that after all this time, they are still fielding 75% of their classic lineup. That means we still have the great Rick Nielsen on guitars and backing vocals, the great Robin Zander on lead vocals and guitars, and the also great Tom Peterson on the 12-string bass and backing vocals. The one missing cog from the original foursome is drummer Bunny Carlos, who retired from the band in 2010. But now we have Rick Nielsen's son Dax behind the kit, as he has been for the past 15 years on tour, as well as for the previous 3 albums. And we also have listed for the first time officially Robin Taylor Zander, son of Robin Zander, first of his name, contributing guitars and vocals, as he's been doing with the band on stage pretty regularly for the past few years now. And I like the way the band members are represented in the album cover art by the 4 washing machines. Rick is the checkerboard machine, as that pattern has been his visual motif since the band's early days. Robin is the solid white machine with stars on it, in the manner of his best-known stage outfit. Robin's washer has a Z in the window representing Robin Taylor Zander, whose nickname is Z. Tom is the orange machine because his bass amp is orange. And Dax is the gold machine because he sometimes plays a metallic gold kit with the familiar Cheap Trick logo on the bass drum. As for additional musicians, Tim Lauer is credited with keyboards, Tom Bukovic with additional guitars, and Robin Saylor Zander, daughter of Robin Zander, first of his name, and Julian Raymond, who produced the album along with the band, both contribute some backing vocals along the way. All of the songs on the album were entirely written by Rick, Tom, and original Recipe Robin, with 2 exceptions. 12 Gates gives an additional writing credit to Robin Taylor Zander, and A Long Way to Worcester was co-written by the 3 principals along with Jerry Dale McFadden and Robert Reynolds. I presume that latter is not the Bob from the Thunderbolts movie, but I digress. 11 tracks on the album, ranging in length from about 2.5 minutes to just shy of 5 minutes. Most of the songs fit into that 3 to 4 minute radio-friendly window. The entire album clocks in at just a hair under 40 minutes, so it's a nicely paced set that moves right along, as one would expect from Cheap Trick. So let's run them down from top to bottom. Track number 1 is All Washed Up. The album comes roaring out of the gate with this hard-rocking title track. It's a bit ironic that the song is entitled All Washed Up because Cheap Trick serves undeniable notice here that they are anything but. This track is about as aggressive as anything the band has recorded since their very first album way back in 1977. It's a throwback to that same raw, punky feel that the debut album had. The only thing I don't love about this track, though I do love it, is the way Robin's vocals are mixed. It sounds a bit grimy and sludgy for no good reason, really. If I'd been at the board, I would have sharpened that vocal and positioned it right out front and center. But they're not paying me to produce albums, so there you go. Still, All Washed Up makes for a terrific rocking kickoff to this album and a perfectly appropriate title track. Track number 2 is All Wrong Long Gone. Try saying that 5 times fast. Keeping the in-your-face vibe cooking, this is another potent punch of just good old rock and roll. To me, this song sounds almost like an AC/DC number, processed through a Cheap Trick filter, if that makes any sense. Robin's doing his best vocal impression of Brian Johnson by way of Roger Daltrey, and while it's a very different sound from what I might expect from Robin Zander, I kind of dig it. The track is driven by Rick's high-flying guitar and especially by Tom's bass on the bottom end. But that drive never disconnects from the melodic hook that weaves throughout the song. And we get a nice crunchy solo from Rick that I really appreciate. Track number 3 is The Riff That Won't Quit. And if there was ever a Cheap Trick song specifically composed to reinforce its title, well, it's this one. Rick Nielsen lays down a riff here that goes and grinds and builds and does not quit, even when Rick cuts loose with a pair of razor-sharp solo spotlights. He just keeps pulling it back to that central riff, so tasty and juicy. I love Robin's vocal on this one too. He sounds like the Robin Zander of 1977 here, and it really made me think of just how unique and special that voice is. I'm so glad that we still get to hear it on brand new music. Track number 4 is Bet It All. This is the track that sort of ends the first act of the album, if you will. And for me, it's a bit of a come down from those stellar first 3 songs. There's still that commitment to the hard rock flavor that the album starts out with, but this one kind of drags that sound down into something a little too grungy and repetitive, at least for my personal taste. It's a decent enough song, I guess, but it's still definitely one of the weaker tracks on the album, in my view. I would maybe have saved this one for closer to the end of the record, rather than making it essentially a valley between 2 real high points, which brings up something I wanted to mention. There's something a little strange about the sequencing of the songs on this album. It feels as though there was a desire to group songs of a similar style together, rather than mix up the tonality from track to track and keep the listener invested by changing things up frequently. But maybe that's just how I'm hearing it. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with that observation. Track number 5 is The Best Thing. Here's where the second act of the album begins, with Cheap Trick diving into that gorgeous Beatlesque pop sensibility they've displayed throughout their career. The Best Thing is bright and beautiful and dreamy, a power pop love song that shows the band doing, if not their absolute best thing, then certainly one of the many things they are among the best at. A glorious vocal by Robin here. You can almost feel the warmth of sunshine as he's singing. There simply aren't that many vocalists, male vocalists particularly, who can carry off a tune like this without it going all schmaltzy and saccharine. With Robin, the joy feels so genuine and cheerful, you can't help but smile as you listen to him. Track number 6 is 12 Gates. This was the first track released from the album as a single, and I know there were some Cheap Trick fans out there who were worried on first hearing this that the entire album was going to be like this. Well, we've already established that is definitely not the case. However, in the context of the album, 12 Gates is a continuation of that poppier style that we heard on the preceding track, The Best Thing. And again, this style is one of the best tricks in the Cheap Trick bag. If we think back to some of the most successful and best loved songs in the band's catalog, a lot of them are built around this sound. And for my money, this is another winner in that category. There are echoes of classics like Dream Police and If You Want My Love in the undercurrents of this song, even though it's very different from either of those. But it reminds us once again that this sort of modern day Beatles vibe is uniquely Cheap Trick. And when you hear a song like this, you immediately know who's performing it. And more than that, you understand why they're performing it. Track number 7 is Bad Blood. In case you'd forgotten that Cheap Trick is one of the greatest purveyors of power pop in the history of the genre, Bad Blood is here to refresh your memory. What an amazing example of pure power pop this track is. From Rick's guitar at the peak of jangly perfection, to Robin's soaring vocal, to the magnificently understated work by the rhythm section of Tom and Dax. This song picks up the lighter tone of the two preceding songs and bends it in a slightly darker and more confrontational direction, but without losing the hopeful underpinning that great power pop needs to have. Again, there's no other band working today that does this kind of thing quite as well as Cheap Trick does it. And the fact that they are still finding nuance in a style they've been exploring for half a century, that's pretty incredible to me. Track number 8 is Dancing with the Band. So if you needed a palate cleanser from the serious conversation in Bad Blood, here's a good old-fashioned rave-up tune to clear the air. Hearing this song reminded me of how much fun both the band and the audience always appear to have whenever I'm at a Cheap Trick concert. No one leaves a Cheap Trick show without a smile on their face. It's good time, high spirits music. Songs like Dancing with the Band aren't breaking any new ground. Cheap Trick has at least a dozen tunes in their arsenal that occupy this same musical territory. But if you can't enjoy an upbeat party number that gets your head bobbing and your shoulders shaking every now and then, I feel kind of sorry for you. Cheer up, Buttercup. Cheap Trick's here for you. And you know, if the album had ended with this track, I'd still feel I'd gotten my money's worth. Track number 9 is Love Gone. If there's a weak link to be found on the album, it's probably right here. I understand what the band was going for, I do, but it's just too draggy and dreary for me. I hate saying that because the band plays the tune really well, and Robin sings the snot out of it. But I have to say I'm just not feeling this one. Hey, not every track hits everyone in the right spot. This may be your favorite song on the record, and if it is, I'm happy that it's here for you. It certainly gives that sort of late period Beatles quality that the band admires so much. So again, I get what they wanted to do here, but I'm ready to move on. The love is gone for me on this one. Track number 10 is A Long Way to Worcester. This is the one track on the album that was co-written with writers from outside the Cheap Trick family. The band members composed it with input from Jerry Dale McFadden and Robert Reynolds of the alt-country band The Mavericks. I think that shows in the listening. This is probably the least identifiably Cheap Trick song on the whole album, but it's a pretty decent number, and Rick gets to play with some guitar tones that he doesn't get to bust out very often on the band's usual material. So yeah, it's okay, but maybe just okay. Fun fact, it's 2,675 driving miles from here in beautiful downtown Las Vegas to Worcester, Massachusetts, which by any measure is an awfully long way. Track number 11 is Wham Boom Bang, a charming little trifle to close out the album. If you love the kind of lighthearted throwaway tunes the Beatles salted into their middle period albums, or the retro dance hall numbers that Freddie Mercury was fond of slipping onto Queen records around the time of A Night at the Opera and A Day at the Races, then you'll enjoy this. It's whimsical, it's delightful, and look, if you don't like it, at least it's over in less than 2.5 minutes. My overall impression is that All Washed Up is a really solid Cheap Trick album. I would say it's on a level with the band's last 3 studio albums, not counting the 2017 Christmas album, which is a thing unto itself, really. Is this the most groundbreaking or innovative album in the band's discography? No, it is not. However, it reflects all of the things that Cheap Trick does very well, and it presents them still doing those things very well in what is admittedly the latter stages of their legendary career. Robin Zander remains one of the great rock vocalists of all time. Are there accommodations here for the fact that those magnificent pipes are 72 years old? Sure, but fewer than you might think. And having his son RTZ alongside definitely helps. To my ears, Original Recipe Robin still sounds better than almost every other male rock singer of similar vintage that I've heard lately. Tommy Shaw of Styx being perhaps the most noteworthy exception. And the rest of the band is right there instrumentally. Rick Nielsen still gives me all the feels on his endless collection of guitars. And he can still write a catchy hook like nobody's business. Tom Peterson might be the most underappreciated bass player in rock, with his subtle yet undeniable mastery of the 12-string bass. I'll be honest, both on record and in concert, I do miss the quirky rhythmic style of Bunny Carlos on drums. Dax Nielsen is a fine, straight-ahead drummer who provides the band a solid foundation, but Bunny just had that certain je ne sais quoi. Overall, though, the band sounds terrific, and most of the songs in this set are every bit as catchy and fun and rocking as I expect from the self-proclaimed best rock and roll band on the planet. I left out the customary expletive. This is a user-friendly channel. How do I rate this album? Your Uncle Swan is giving Cheap Trick's All Washed Up a very credible 7.5 tail feathers. I have a hard time believing that if you love Cheap Trick, you won't enjoy this album. It's all the Trick you want with maybe a little filler toward the end. This legendary band is most definitely not all washed up. Have you heard All Washed Up yet? What did you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, if you dig what we do here, please hit this video with a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. YouTube loves it when you do that stuff, and I appreciate it sincerely. I will see you when I see you. Until then, please be well and please do well by the people around you. And I'm always going to ask, is there gas in the car? Yes, there's gas in the car.